Why do you feel guilty when you don't explain yourself? Why does your silence feel like a void that needs to be filled? There's a power that most people never discover because they're too afraid to stop talking, too anxious to let the silence speak, too conditioned to believe that every question deserves an answer. Today, I want to show you why silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness, and why the moment you master it, you become untouchable. If you're learning the power of keeping your mouth shut, hit that like button and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what's the hardest thing for you to stop explaining? Let's break the compulsion together. Let me take you into a moment that changed Viktor Frankl's understanding of human dignity. In the concentration camps, the guards would interrogate prisoners, demand explanations, force confessions. Some prisoners would break immediately, spilling everything, desperate to please, hoping that compliance would save them. Others would remain silent. Not defiant silence, dignified silence. The silence that says, "You may control my circumstances, but you don't control my inner world." Frankl noticed something profound. The ones who maintained silence, who refused to perform or explain or justify themselves to their captors, preserved something essential, their sense of self. They understood what most people never learn. Explanation is often a form of self-betrayal. When you explain yourself to someone who has no right to understand you, you're giving away your power. You're subordinating your reality to their judgment. Frankl realized that silence isn't passive. It's the most active form of self-possession. Here's what Andrew Huberman's neuroscience reveals about what happens in your brain when you talk versus when you stay silent, and it's going to change how you see every conversation. When you speak, especially when you're explaining or defending yourself, your prefrontal cortex is working overtime to construct narratives, predict responses, manage the other person's perception of you. Your inactive stress response, your amygdala, the fear center, is often driving the bus. You're talking from anxiety, from the need to be understood, from fear of judgment. But when you choose silence, especially strategic silence, something different happens. Your parasympathetic nervous system can engage. Your prefrontal cortex shifts from reactive to observational. You move from defense to assessment. Silence gives your brain the space to actually think clearly, rather than react defensively. Huberman's research shows that people who can tolerate silence, who can sit in conversational discomfort without filling it, have stronger emotional regulation and better decision-making capacity. Silence isn't weakness, it's neural mastery. Napoleon Hill studied the most successful people of his era, and he found something that contradicted everything society teaches. The most powerful people talked the least. They asked more questions than they answered. They listened more than they spoke. They let others fill the silence with their own assumptions, their own projections, their own insecurities. Hill called it controlled attention, the ability to direct your focus without leaking your strategy, your thoughts, your plans to everyone around you. He noticed that people who talk constantly about what they're going to do rarely do it. The energy gets dissipated in the telling, but the ones who worked in silence, who kept their plans close, who didn't feel the need to announce every intention, they were the ones who actually achieved. Hill would tell you your words are seeds. If you scatter them everywhere, nothing grows. But if you plant them strategically in fertile soil in the right season, with the right people, that's when you see harvest. Pause right now and like this video if you've ever talked yourself out of something powerful by explaining it too soon to the wrong people. And comment, what dream are you going to protect with silence? Let's guard our seeds together. Neville Goddard understood the spiritual mechanics of silence in a way that will revolutionize how you think about this. He taught that assumption creates reality, but he also taught that speaking your assumption prematurely to unconvinced ears can actually weaken its manifestation. Why? Because when you share your vision with people who don't believe in it, their doubt enters your consciousness. Their skepticism becomes a frequency you have to fight against. Goddard would say, your imagination is a sacred space. Not everyone deserves access. When you're building something new in your inner world, a new version of yourself, a new goal, a new reality, you need to protect it from the pollution of other people's limiting beliefs. Silence isn't secrecy, it's incubation. You don't dig up a seed every day to check if it's growing. You plant it, cover it with soil, with silence, and let it germinate in the dark. Your dreams need the same protection. Let me tell you about James. He was a chronic over-explainer. Every decision, every feeling, every thought, he needed people to understand, to validate, to agree. When he got passed over for a promotion, he spent weeks explaining to everyone why it wasn't fair, building his case, seeking validation. When his relationship ended, he wrote paragraphs to his ex trying to make her understand his perspective. He exhausted himself trying to control other people's perception of him. Then something happened. His father died, and in the grief, James went silent. Not because he chose to, but because there were no words. And in that silence, he discovered something shocking. The world kept turning. People respected his silence more than they'd ever respected his explanations. His absence from constant explanation made people curious rather than dismissive. And most importantly, in the silence, James finally heard himself. For the first time in his life, he wasn't performing for an external audience. He was just being, and that being was enough. Huberman's work on the default mode network explains what happened to James neurologically. When you're constantly talking, explaining, performing verbally, your brain is in task-positive mode, externally focused, reactive, managing social dynamics. But when you enter silence, your default mode network activates. This is the network associated with self-reflection, internal narrative, and sense of identity. It's where insight happens, where you actually process your experiences rather than just narrating them. People who never stop talking never activate this network fully. They're so busy managing their external presentation that they lose touch with their internal reality. Silence is how you come home to yourself. Frankl would frame this through his concept of self-detachment, the ability to step back from yourself and observe without constantly explaining or justifying. He believed that the more you try to force others to understand you, the more you lose yourself, because you're now living in their framework, their judgment, their perception. But when you can exist without explanation, when you can hold your truth without needing validation, you achieve what Frankl called tragic optimism, the ability to maintain meaning and dignity regardless of external circumstances or opinions. Silence is the practice of self-detachment. You're saying, "I don't need you to understand me for me to be valid." Hill would make this devastatingly practical. He'd ask, how much of your power are you giving away in unnecessary explanations? How many times have you talked about your plans to someone who had no ability to help or support them, and their doubt leaked into your conviction? Hill was ruthless about this. He said that successful people have what he called controlled enthusiasm. They're excited about their goals, but they're selective about who they share that excitement with. They understand that not everyone deserves to know your business. And more importantly, talking about doing something tricks your brain into thinking you've already done it. You get the dopamine hit from the conversation without doing the work. Silence forces you to channel that energy into action rather than announcement. Goddard takes this into the realm of power and manifestation. He taught that when you're in the process of assuming a new state, you're in a vulnerable formative stage. Speaking it to people who are invested in your old state, who know you as you were, not as you're becoming, creates resistance. Their image of you, their belief about you has energy. And if they're holding an old image while you're trying to embody a new one, you're working against their consciousness, not just your own doubts. Goddard would say, go silent. Revise yourself in the privacy of your imagination. Live from the new assumption internally, and only speak it when it's so solidified in you that external doubt cannot shake it. Silence is the womb where the new you gestates. I need you to get real for a second. Think about the last time you over-explained yourself and regretted it. What were you actually seeking, understanding, or validation? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Let's name the real need. Here's what happens when you finally embrace silence as power. First, people get uncomfortable. They're used to you explaining, performing, filling every gap. Your silence feels like withdrawal, and they'll push you to talk. Resist. Let them sit in their discomfort. It's not your job to ease their anxiety with your words. Second, you'll feel the urge to fill the silence yourself. Your nervous system will scream at you to speak, to explain, to defend. Breathe through it. That urge is just a habit, not truth. Third, and this is where it gets powerful, clarity arrives. In the space where you used to put explanations, insight appears. You start noticing things, people's motivations, their projections, their insecurities. You see dynamics you were blind to when you were busy talking. Silence makes you observant, and observation is power. Then something remarkable happens. people start projecting onto your silence whatever they need to see. Some see wisdom, some see aloofness, some see strength, some see threat. And here's the key: none of it is about you. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects back their own consciousness. God had taught this explicitly. People cannot see you as you are, only as they are. Your silence stops trying to control that projection and lets it be what it is. You're no longer exhausting yourself, managing everyone's perception. You're just being, and being is infinitely more powerful than performing. Frankl survived unspeakable horror, partly because he mastered silence. He didn't explain himself to guards. He didn't try to make his captors see his humanity. He preserved his inner world in silence, and that preservation is what allowed him to survive with his dignity intact. After the camps he wrote, he spoke, he taught, but he chose when and how and to whom. His words had weight because they were rare, carefully chosen, earned through experience. He wasn't filling silence with noise. He was breaking silence with truth. There's a massive difference. Hill would tell you that your words are currency. If you spend them on everyone and everything, they become worthless. But if you're strategic, if you speak only when you have something worth saying to someone worth saying it to, your words become valuable. People lean in when you speak because you don't speak carelessly. This isn't about being cold or withholding. It's about being intentional. Every word should serve a purpose. Every explanation should have a worthy recipient. Everything else is just energy leak. Goddard would guide you to practice this. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking to inform or to seek validation? Am I sharing truth or defending ego? If it's the latter, choose silence. Use that energy internally. Imagine yourself as someone who doesn't need to explain, someone whose presence speaks louder than words, someone who is so secure in their truth that external misunderstanding is irrelevant. Assume that state, and silence becomes natural rather than effortful. Here's the most liberating truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your choices, your boundaries, your evolution, your peace. Not your family, not your friends, not strangers on the internet. The people who are meant to understand you will understand you with minimal explanation. The people who are determined to misunderstand you will misunderstand you no matter how much you explain. So why exhaust yourself? Your silence is not a wall, it's a filter. It filters out everyone who needs you to perform, to accept you, and lets in everyone who can accept you as you are. If you're ready to stop explaining and start embodying, if you're ready to let silence be your strength instead of your fear, like this video. Share it with someone who talks too much when they should be listening to themselves. Subscribe because we're going deeper every time. And tell me in the comments, what's one thing you're committing to stop explaining? Let's practice the power of silence together. I'll see you in the next one.